You told me that near-death experiences are real, and while I'm still not so sure, this new movie Afterdeath has some insanely compelling evidence. Whether you're like this article right here bashing the entire movie or a true believer of near-death experiences, I think there's a lot that can be learned watching this movie, and I think it's actually really good, because I've seen it early. So today we're gonna dive deep into this movie to determine whether you should go see Afterdeath in the theaters or not. It actually comes out today, and if you want free tickets, you can go down to my link in the description down below, angel.com/snipelife. And of course, thank you Angel Studios for sponsoring this video. While they have sponsored it, they haven't told me what I have to say or what I can't say. So this is my honest opinion of Afterdeath and whether you should go see it or not. As always, let's take a look at this movie from a 50,000 foot view. Now, always when we're looking at different projects, especially from Angel and different people that are making good projects today, we want to determine a few different things. What type of project is this? How well is it done? And is the quality really up to the standard that we should assume from these type of distributors today? Well, I wouldn't necessarily say that this is a Christian movie. I would say this is a great way to learn more about near-death experiences and the teams that are actually studying it behind the scenes. Most of this movie isn't actually approached from a faith-based point of view. It's talking about these scenarios in a way that people have studied them for almost the last 100 years. First, let's talk about the story. This movie follows several different stories from people that have experienced near-death experiences. They've died or almost died and then come back to life and have all had very similar type experiences. It's really interesting to see because even in cases that people are blind, they end up describing things that are very similar to people that aren't blind but still are experiencing these near-death experiences. I'm gonna have to stop saying experience at some point. In one case, a man clinically died after an airplane crash. Another woman got stuck under the water for several minutes and was brain dead for over 20 minutes. Insane stories, and all of them have unique things about them, but several of these stories have very interesting linking moments, things that you wouldn't think are actually possible. But even people that are experiencing NDEs from around the world are experiencing similar things within these moments. All of these stories are insanely compelling, emotional, and real. I mean, these are things that verifiably happened, not just from word of mouth, but also we see them happening. There's witnesses to these events, and also there's scientific evidence for some of this stuff as well, including one of the first times ever that a brain scan was captured during someone's death. One thing that I really appreciated about the story of this movie is that they didn't go straight to the people that believe in near-death experiences. They actually brought in a lot of different experts, from doctors that don't believe in NDEs to the people themselves in these stories that previously to the NDE, they had a completely different outlook on life. They weren't religious, they were very anti-religious in some cases, and they definitely did not believe in near-death experiences at all. As a viewer, and especially as a skeptic, this really helps you to at least get into the movie and to see where they're kind of going with this. It was really, really interesting. For the first portion of the movie, they talk a lot about these heavenly experiences that people had, but then nearing the end of the movie, they actually get more into the hellish experiences. This is pretty intense as well, as some people experienced both heaven and hell. Some people experienced a hellish experience, and some people had a heavenly experience. One of my favorite parts of the documentary was just seeing how these stories panned out, and they did a great job of weaving them throughout the entire movie to give a great payoff near the end. Now, in terms of cinematography, this is something that I always pay attention to in movies like this. I want to see how they're conveying the story and how they're sharing these different points of view. I was super excited to see that they didn't try to recreate every single moment where there's this heavenly or hellish experience. They really did these abstract, wonderful pieces of cinematography that seemed like most of them were done in camera, really, really well done. You can actually see a lot of this in the trailer as well. It's not always a dramatization of what happened or what they experienced. In fact, a lot of times there's no way that you could ever convey what these people are trying to talk about. So to show on the screen would just be futile. So I love what the filmmakers did here. It reminds me of Oppenheimer and a lot of people that I've seen on YouTube trying to remake some of those effects, but in a unique way, in a way that really makes you think about what is actually going on in the story. I think this is a super intelligent way of telling the story without having to go too deep into these dramatizations of what's actually going on. Now, many of the people that are interviewed during this are either people that have experienced NDEs or they're actually part of a group called IANS. This is the International Association for Near-Death Studies, and they've been doing this for a long time. They've been gathering different data and stories and putting it all together so that they can study what is actually going on here. Many of the people that actually founded this group were skeptics and scientists that really could not get past what they were seeing in the data, that things were appearing over and over and over again. People were telling the same stories even though they've never met. And it was a really intense thing for them to get through. So they decided to make this organization so they could be the #1 voice on NDEs in the world. So overall, I thought that this movie was really well done. And if you get a chance, definitely go and see it. There's a lot of really unique evidences that are in this movie that were very compelling to me and shows us that there may be something beyond what we believe to be true about death and beyond death. And like I said previously, while I wouldn't say that this is a Christian movie, I do think that this is a great place to learn more about near-death experiences and to see a little bit more of the evidence that exists out in the world. However, I would be careful about how you approach this movie. Don't go into this movie wanting to believe every single thing that's said. I would approach it with a bit of skepticism. Allow yourself to acknowledge the stories and the things that are going on, but remember that you don't have to believe every single word that's said in this movie. Take it with a grain of salt and do your own research when it comes to near-death experiences. I think that'll help you to approach this in a little bit better way. Don't go in as a full skeptic, hating every single thing that you're gonna see, but also don't go in ready to believe every single word that's said. I think there's a healthy middle ground that can be put in place here. Thanks again to Angel Studios for sponsoring this video, and I'd love to hear what you think about Afterdeath. If you go see it, let me know what you sleuth out. Anyway, we'll see you on the next one. Peace.
Doctors resuscitate.
I can't be dead because I've never felt more alive.
I've never heard these experiences before. Hogwash.
It was 1969, a beautiful day to fly. We were about 100 feet above the ground when I started noticing that something was wrong. It was engine failure. Trees were filling our windshield. I found myself above the crash site. And while I'm processing what I'm looking at, I can see a pilot, and this is me.
No two near-death experiences are the same.
Out of nowhere, a trailer truck hit me head-on. But
They typically occur in a very consistent process.
We began to go down the river, and my boat became pinned. I was drowning.
The first thing that happens is called an out-of-body experience.
And they come to a place of exquisite beauty.
They very commonly see a light. Deceased relatives come to meet them.
the first person I saw was my grandfather. Now I'm traveling like a rocket ship.
Straight upwards. And with that... Oh my God, I'm alive.
But not every near-death experience is a good one. 23% had hellish experiences.
I saw a black tunnel. I was just falling. I wasn't in fear, I was in terror. It was just darkness.
Put me back. I don't belong here.
I heard a voice before I woke up.
You still have a purpose on Earth.
I was very skeptical.
I never felt alive and then dead. I felt alive and then more alive.
I had full brain recordings from the dying human brain.
Even though they were unconscious, they were able to give corroborative evidence.
She's described herself because she just shouldn't know. This ain't right.
You can't be mystified by that question. What happens after you die?
This really does show that there is life after death.